This video is intended to orient developers who are transitioning from the Bitcoin.com services like rest.bitcoin.com or Bitbox to the FullStack.cash infrastructure. So developers who are building Bitcoin Cash apps who have previously depended on Bitcoin.com infrastructure, who might be looking for other resources out there. And so this is going to introduce FullStack.cash, how it's similar to Bitcoin.com and how it's different. My name is Chris Troutner. I actually helped develop the rest.bitcoin.com and Bitbox platforms, and then I left in early 2020 to start FullStack.cash, which is a continuation. So it's a fork of the software. The software is very similar, and it's mostly similar, but this video is going to just point out some of the caveats and gotchas that developers need to be aware of if they're going to transition from one infrastructure to the other. So the most popular resource used at Bitcoin.com is the REST API, and this can be seen at rest.bitcoin.com. The rest.bitcoin.com is a Swagger UI that lets you interact with the REST API. It's really handy. So, like, for instance, getting the balance of a Bitcoin Cash address, you can interact with it here. Here's an example. You can put a different Bitcoin Cash address in any Bitcoin Cash address in there, and then you'll get this nice data set back. FullStack.cash has a similar user interface at /explorebchn, and it's very similar. Where so like here, where I got the balance of an address, we have a Fulcrum Electrum X indexer, and it does roughly the same thing, where you can give it a Bitcoin Cash address and then get the confirmed and unconfirmed balances of Bitcoin Cash for that address. And so if you're used to using rest.fullstack.cash, the Swagger UI, you'll be really comfortable here at this custom UI that we built here at /explorer-bchn. We also offer support for testnet as well as the ABC blockchain. And so that's a pretty straightforward in terms of the REST API. They offer a REST API. We offer a REST API. A lot of the endpoints are the same or very, very similar. In order to orient yourself even more, we have these quick start example code. This is mostly focused on JavaScript developers. So we use a JavaScript library called BCH.js, which is forked from Bitcoin.com's Bitbox JavaScript library, which I helped develop with Gabriel Cardona back a couple years ago. And anyways, if you go to /examples, there's a couple great videos I strongly recommend you watch. And that Explorer UI that I just showed for working with the REST API, you can get to it from here. There's also a testnet faucet for getting testnet coins if you want to develop on testnet. And but really it's this button here at the top that will take you to the quick start examples, which cover a lot of common use cases like creating tokens, creating NFTs, creating a wallet, and sending money. All very common use cases exist here. And then also the API documentation is at /documentation, fullstack.cash /documentation. And there's this technical reference for mastering Bitcoin Cash, and that's a great reference. We have the API reference for BCH API, our REST API. So if you really want to dig into the API calls at this Explore BCHN page, this is where you do it. So you can dive into, like, say, our Electrum X indexer and getting unconfirmed UTXOs, getting a balance for a single address. You can scroll down to one of our more popular API endpoints is hydrate UTXOs. So you give it it has curl examples that you can use. And this is a call for hydrating a UTXO with token data. There's also this newer function called, that's actually in BCH.js. So that's the that's the REST API. We have BCH.js, which is our version of Bitbox. It's forked from the same code, and then it's had several upgrades since we forked it about a year ago. One of the most useful endpoints is this UTXO get call, which you give it an address, and it will automatically retrieve all the UTXOs and hydrate them if they're tokens with token data, and then categorize them into these different arrays. We also have some really handy, just a lot of utility functions. It basically has all the functionality that Bitbox has, plus a lot of more higher level abstraction calls. So that's where you can find the code examples in the documentation. Now for JavaScript developers specifically, like I said, Bitcoin.com has their Bitbox SDK, as well as I think an SLP JS SDK for working with SLP tokens. Those two SDKs are combined in BCH.js. BCH.js does everything Bitbox does and everything that SLP.js does for working with SLP tokens. So both of these software stacks of infrastructure use what I call the cache stack. And if you go to PSFoundation.cash/blog/cache stack, that's the Permissionless Software Foundation. This is the most up-to-date article I've written on this cache stack. But basically, this is the software stack, and this is common at Bitcoin.com and FullStack.cash. They both follow this model, where at the top is the application, like a phone app or a web app that you ultimately want to present to the user. At the bottom is the full node, the most basic piece of software used to talk to the Bitcoin Cash network. And then in between is different layers of infrastructure. So you need indexers in order to track UTXOs and address balances and tokens. And then you need something like rest.bitcoin.com or BCH API to act as a REST API to talk to these lower level pieces of infrastructure. And then you're going to have an interface library like BCH.js or Bitbox that the application is going to interact with. And so this is the cache stack. In a nutshell, if you go down, I sort of expand on how this applies to FullStack.cash, and I link to all the code and here. The different, I walk through the different layers of the stack and where the code lives for those things. So this is a really handy article to review. It applies both to Bitcoin.com and FullStack.cash. If you're a developer working for a company trying to build a Bitcoin Cash app, then understanding that reference, those concepts are really important, regardless of which service you use. There are some differences, though, particularly when it comes to the indexer layer. Bitcoin.com uses what they've dubbed NinSite, which stands for not Insight. Insight was this older indexer that they used, and eventually it kind of died, and they built their own version that worked the same but was not Insight, so they called it NinSite. And it's custom, it's proprietary. My understanding is it is not open source. And then they also have their own custom SLP indexer, which I believe is open source, but I don't think anybody runs it other than Bitcoin.com. And so they do a good job of hiding that stuff under the hood. Like, for example, this address balance endpoint, this calls their NinSite indexer, and that's where all this transaction data and all this extra metadata is coming from. And so anytime you're dealing with UTXOs or address balances, that information is going to come from an indexer. So they use an insight. FullStack.cash uses the Fulcrum Electrum X open source indexer, which is pretty performant and reliable. And so that's how you do the same thing. That's how you get UTXOs and address balances and transaction histories. All that information comes from the indexer. So we're running two different pieces of software that achieve the same goal. Ours is open source, theirs is not. Also, the same thing basically applies to the SLP indexer. They have a custom SLP indexer, whereas we use the SLPDB indexer, which is considered basically the industry standard. That's pretty much what everybody except for Bitcoin.com uses. And the only other indexer is the SLP indexer built into BCHD, which has been under development and is starting to achieve maturity. And we're going to be looking into that going forward. We'll be running both. We won't be giving up SLPDB because right now it's it's open source, it's mature, it handles well in a production environment with millions of requests a day. And so we'll continue to use that, but we're also going to be paying close attention to the BCHD indexer as well. So these are some of the caveats. So as a result of this, moving your code from Bitcoin.com to FullStack.cash is not going to be drop-in. There's going to be some refactoring that needs to take place, but it's alleviated by the fact that you're really doing the same things and getting the same data. You're just changing a little bit of like the syntax, and so conceptually it's not a big change. It's just but it's not a drop-in replacement. The biggest paradigm change from moving to Bitcoin.com to FullStack.cash is this concept of rate limits. Bitcoin.com does not use any rate limits, and as a result, they have been the victims of abuse. Developers just use way too many resources, and as a result, everybody suffers because they're all eating from the same food trough. And so one person's bad behavior affects everybody. And FullStack.cash out of the gate, we took these rate limits as a pretty serious design change. And so we used JWT tokens, JWT tokens. If you're not familiar with JWT tokens, Google it. You can get a pretty basic idea. But again, if you go to the examples, so FullStack.cash/examples, you can watch this video about working with JWT tokens and how they work. And if you go to the BCHJS source code, so I'll show you where that's at. That's on GitHub.com under the Permissionless Software Foundation GitHub group. And here's BCHJS, they're pinned, and BCH API. And they both talk about the JWT tokens, but BCHJS right in the README has some examples of how to use the API, how to get an API key, which is a JWT token, and how to use it, how to plug it in when you're instantiating your instance of BCH API. There is, if you go to FullStack.cash, right there above the fold is a button for pricing, or you can just go to /pricing. And there's a free tier that does not require a JWT token, and you can get 20 requests per minute out of the free tier without worrying about a JWT token at all. That lets people get started quickly. It lets them use the quick start code examples and get a feel for getting started quickly, sending and receiving Bitcoin Cash and tokens. And you can build a proof of concept without paying anything and worrying about this. It's when you want to actually provide a good user experience and start using your code to do something useful. That's when you're going to start to run into rate limits. And so we have these 3 tiers where you get 100 requests per minute, 250 requests per minute, or 600 requests per minute. So that's how you can unlock increased rate limits and not run into those rate limit errors. This protects you because you will not be impacted by other people who might abuse the system. That's ultimately the problem that the rate limits solve. It keeps everything fair. And then for larger customers, for small businesses and enterprise customers and everybody in between, we run dedicated infrastructure, and our sort of footprint that we recommend there is 250 requests, 250,000 requests per day is sort of what we is like for a one stack, and then you can scale horizontally with multiple stacks. And so one stack costs roughly about $550 a month, where it's a full node, it's an Electrum X indexer, and it's in one of the pooled SLPDB instances. And so that comes out to about $550 a month, and then plus running BCH API, which I don't have listed here. That's essentially what makes up the cash stack. And if you really need as much power as possible, you don't want to worry about rate limits. Setting up your own infrastructure is the way to do it. If $550 a month is, if this is something that you need for your business, and $550 a month is too much, we have the Cash Strap page right here. If you go to the menu, go to Cash Strap, or you can just go to /Cash Strap. These are Docker containers for all of the software that we run at FullStack.cash. We encourage people to run their own infrastructure. We're not trying to be a walled garden. We're just trying to be a service provider so that we can handle those low-level details if you don't want to and you have the budget to pay us to do that. If you do not have the budget, or you just would rather have your own in-house infrastructure and you don't mind the learning curve of learning how to run all this software, we provide BCHN, full node. We have a Docker container, and we have a pre-synced database that you can download over BitTorrent, so that you can stand up each of these layers of the infrastructure in like an hour rather than 2 weeks to sync, which is typically what it takes. The same goes for SLPDB and the Fulcrum indexer. And so you do not need to pay us to run this infrastructure. Everything's open source. However, we're here to provide technical support and handle all those low-level details, so that as a business you can just focus on making money and providing value and doing the value proposition that your business is focused on. So again, there's that walkthrough video at /examples on how to use the JOT token if that's a new paradigm for you, and the pricing's at /pricing. So this is basically the main differences between Bitcoin.com and FullStack.cash. Conceptually, everything's pretty much identical. It's just a matter of the syntax changes, and then the sort of shifting into this concept of using rate limits and understanding that that's what keeps things fair and protects users from abusing the system or being affected by other users who abuse the system.